We interrupt your regular programming to bring you this special news bulletin. Empires and Puzzles has been banned and forced to discontinue in Vietnam. In a short media release issued last week, Small Giant Games cited that regulatory issues were forcing them to discontinue offering Empires and Puzzles in Vietnam, and that the game was removed from the App and Play stores in the Vietnam market. Our special correspondent has more on this story. In a short media statement issued last week and found on the Empires and Puzzles forums, Small Giants states that, unfortunately, due to regulatory issues, we have been forced to discontinue offering Empires and Puzzles in Vietnam. This means that the game will be removed from the App Store and Play Store in Vietnam and will not be available for players from this country. Please read more here. When reading more as suggested, we find the following. Dear players, unfortunately, due to local regulatory issues, we have been forced to discontinue offering Empires and Puzzles in Vietnam. This means that the game will be removed from the App Store and Play Store in Vietnam and will not be available for players based in this country. Rest assured, Empires and Puzzles will still be available globally in other countries, and gameplay outside Vietnam will not be affected. I did reach out to Small Giants in an attempt to obtain precisions on why they were banned. In their usual unresponsive way, I received the following reply earlier today. Thank you for taking time to contact us. Unfortunately, due to local regulatory issues, we have been forced to discontinue offering Empires and Puzzles in Vietnam. This means that you will not be able to officially update your game in the future, provided you have saved your account using either Google Play or Game Center. You will not lose your progress. While we regret this situation, unfortunately, it is largely unavoidable. We apologize for the trouble and inconvenience this has caused. We would like to thank you for your support and for being a part of our Empires community. Obviously, a non-response. There is nothing new other than repeating that it is a regulatory issue that has forced them to discontinue the game. I have sent a follow-up request for clarification to Small Giants. However, at the time of this broadcast, Small Giant has not responded. The ban on online gaming in Vietnam is not a new topic, and it would appear that Small Giant may have been operating illegally in Vietnam for quite some time. Another theory that is circulating in the forums is that the parent company, Zynga, was found in contravention of long-established regulations and was forced to shut down all online gaming and gambling operations in Vietnam, and may have retaliated by withdrawing Empires and Puzzles from that market. Back in 2010, the Vietnamese government adopted a regulation that forced internet service providers, known as ISPs, to block access to online games each day from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., which curfew started in March of 2011. The ban was seen as another step in an ongoing government initiative to limit the negative side effects of online gaming in Vietnam. At the time, the Deputy Minister of Information and Communication stated that provincial departments of information and communication will inspect online game activities nationwide and deal with organizations that violate regulations by canceling their services. This limit on gaming activity was set out in Article 36 of Regulation 103-209-ND-CP. Paragraph 2 and 3 of Article 35 of the said regulation specifically state that, upon operation, organizations and individuals dealing in video games shall observe the following provisions. A. Contents of video games must be healthy and not violate Article 3 of this regulation. B. Not to operate after 2200 hours to 800 hours. And 3. Dealing in video games of gambling nature is prohibited. In 2017, the Vietnamese government started cracking down on offenders by working with Apple, Google, and Facebook to remove online games that did not meet the government policies. As of July 2019, 142 illegal games were identified and removed from the App Store and Google Play Store in Vietnam. Well-known mobile games that offered in-app purchases, such as Clash of Titans, Heyday, and Clash Royale, to name a few, were banned in Vietnam. At the time, Supercell, the Finnish game development company behind these titles, announced that it had, and I quote, discontinued all of its games in Vietnam due to local regulatory issues. A statement that sounds vaguely familiar. The statement by Supercell continues. This means that our games will be taken down from the Vietnamese Google Play and Apple App Store. Our games will still be available globally in other countries, and gameplay outside Vietnam will not be affected. We hope this is not a goodbye for Vietnam, and we keep looking for solutions to bring our games back in the future. Again, this 2-year-old statement sounds vaguely familiar, if not plagiarized. Let's go back here to see if we can find the press release. There we go. And as you can see, paragraph 2 here is almost identical to the second paragraph of the press release that was found on the Small Giant forums. Somehow, Empires and Puzzles, which was released amidst the crackdown in Vietnam in March of 2017 by another Finnish game developer, Small Giants, which also, by the way, has in-game purchases with very low odds, think of the 1% or less chance of obtaining a 5-star hero, completely escaped the Vietnamese government's scrutiny. Was Small Giants Gaming finally caught operating illegally in Vietnam? That is certainly one plausible theory. According to Vietnamese legislation, a video game in which multiple players interact with each other simultaneously through the game's server must be granted a license for providing games services and have its content approved before it can be published in Vietnam. A spokesperson for the ministry explained that games being provided on the Vietnamese market must be licensed. We don't accept cross-border games that have players and generate revenue in Vietnam without permission. In order to have their games licensed, foreign companies must either collaborate with Vietnamese companies and have their Vietnamese partners carry out the application procedures, or establish a branch and representative office in Vietnam in which the foreign company's capital contribution must not exceed 49%. During the licensing process, the game must be taken down from application stores and websites in Vietnam, and it can only be made available again once it is approved. The ministry also warned that Vietnamese companies must not collaborate with foreign firms to act as a front and collect money from players to transfer to their foreign partners. They added that a number of such companies have been busted and punished by the Information Ministry and the police. Again, this would be another plausible theory as to why Empires and Puzzles was banned in Vietnam. While many see the Vietnamese government's measures as extreme, the 2010 restrictions on playing and availability of online games came in reaction to the public's outcry on the effects of gaming on the nation's youth. The bans also came in wake of a number of murders and robberies incited by online conflict and the desire for virtual items. In one reported instance, a 15-year-old girl attacked a 4-year-old in order to obtain the equivalent of $10 for in-game microtransactions. To illustrate the involvement of the Vietnamese government in online gaming, you may recall that PUBG, that is the Players Unknown Battleground, was forced to change the color of the blood in the game from red to blue for players in Vietnam in order to conform to the then regulation and circumvent the violence restrictions. We now turn to one last development in Vietnam that may explain the plausible reasons behind the ban. More recently, in 2020, the Vietnamese government adopted Law 61-2020-QH14 that entered into force on January 1st, 2021. Some of the key outcomes of the legislation, which could also explain Small Giant's decision or ban, are as follows. Firstly, the government lowered the foreign investor threshold from 51% equity to 50%, which under the 2014 legislation, enterprises that were 51% or more foreign-owned were treated as foreign investors for the purposes of investment activities and taxes. Thus, a company which was more than 50% owned by a foreign entity could still receive the benefits afforded to domestic companies. The 2020 legislation changes this by lowering the foreign investors' threshold from 51% to 50%. There could perhaps be an economic or profit basis for Small Giant's decision to withdraw from the Vietnamese market. However, that is rather unlikely considering that Vietnam online gaming is a booming market of $10 million and steadily increasing year over year. Based on market research carried out by the market company Nico Partners and Google, Vietnam's esport market will hit a 28% 5-year annual growth rate, which is the highest in Southeast Asia. In 2020, the revenue from online games in Vietnam are expected to reach $10 million, which is an increase of 16% over the previous year. It is therefore unlikely that Small Giants would want to withdraw from such a lucrative market. Secondly, restrictions relating to sham nominee transactions were addressed in the 2020 legislation. The 2020 legislation tightens rules regarding the use of Vietnamese nominees in order for foreign investors to access restricted sectors. An investment undertaken on the basis of a counterfeit civil transaction, also translated as a sham or facade, can be terminated by the government. In other words, if Small Giant's partner in Vietnam was, as previously stated, collecting and funneling monies out of Vietnam, the government could intercede and terminate the relationship and thus cause the game to be banned. So, where does this leave us as a community? Unfortunately, we have lost our Vietnamese-based players, and Small Giant Games has not indicated whether they were going to refund those players or if further steps would be taken to reintroduce the game in Vietnam. And this brings us to a very important point. While our North American laws may be a little more lax and unrestricted, what happens when a game studio decides to completely pull the plug on a game where players have sunk tons of money in hopes of getting an elusive item and have gotten nothing in return? Are you comfortable sinking so much money in this game knowing that it may one day cease to operate? Let me know by leaving a comment below. That is all we can report for now. However, I will provide an update should I uncover anything more on this issue. In closing, I would please ask you to hit that like button, please subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Until next time, may all your boards be favorable and all your titans be defeated.